The movie starts in an interesting way in a thick Japanese forest, where local police are looking for something, or maybe someone. They come across the remains of a campfire and find an old camera lying on the ground. One female officer slowly walks deeper into the forest and enters an old empty temple filled with ancient god statues. In the creepy silence, she sees a book on the altar with blood dripping from it. When she looks up, she sees something so scary that she starts screaming loudly, and the scene ends suddenly. Then the story shifts to a hospital, where we meet Professor Ryo and his translator, Itoku. They are called to check on a badly hurt man whose face is so damaged it's covered with a plastic bag. Professor Ryo gently asks him who he is. At first, the man says nothing, but then he gives a small nod to show he understands. Another man named Kazunori guesses the man might be American, and the injured man sort of agrees by asking in English where he is. Professor Ryo calmly tells him that he's safe in a medical facility. Wanting to know more about the man and hoping to find some answers, Professor Ryo shows him a video on his laptop. The video shows a young woman named Kate. In the video, she happily says she just bought a new camera for her upcoming trip to Japan. Why is she going? She wants to take pictures of Buddhist temples for a school project about religion. She also says she's going with her boyfriend James and her good friend Chris, who knows a little Japanese. She adds that Chris recently lost his brother, so she brought him along to help him feel better. After stopping the video, Professor Ryo asks the man about Kate. The man looks upset when he sees her and avoids answering the questions. Instead, he urgently asks how they got the video. Seeing that the man has been through something serious, Professor Ryo gently asks him to tell what happened. Right now, we don't know if the injured man is Chris or James, but it's clear he has gone through a lot of pain. He slowly starts telling his story. The scene then shifts to the past, showing what led to this sad moment. Kate and Chris arrive in Japan together. They are happy but tired from the long flight. At the hotel, they meet James, Kate's boyfriend, who is already there waiting. After a short rest, all three go out to explore the streets of Japan. Chris keeps taking photos and videos of Kate. James looks a bit bothered by this, but Kate quietly tells him not to worry. She says Chris is just a close friend and asks him not to feel jealous. Still, the quiet tension between them stays. None of them knows that this fun trip and their friendly bonds are about to turn into something dark and scary. The next morning, they pack up and take a train to a faraway village in the mountains. On the train, James talks about how he learned Japanese and brings up old memories with Kate, maybe to show how close he is to her. Kate overhears them and jokes around when she realizes they're talking about her. Later, Chris tells Kate that being on this trip with her and James feels a bit uncomfortable. He says they might need some time apart. Kate, trying to keep things calm, tells him it's just for one night and everything will be okay. While looking around a small shop full of old Japanese items, Kate finds an old journal called Folktales. Inside, there are hand-drawn pictures of a creepy temple and strange statues. She asks Chris to read the Japanese writing. Chris says it talks about a tricky spirit, part woman, part fox, that fools people. Kate is curious and wants to visit the temple shown in the drawings. They try to buy the book, but the shop owner acts weird, scared, and suspicious. She refuses to sell it, quickly closes her shop, and warns them the book is dangerous. Kate and Chris are confused, but Chris says he didn't say anything wrong. That night, James and Chris go to a nearby club. While James is dancing with another girl, Chris goes outside for some fresh air and sees that the door of the antique shop is a little open. He goes inside, finds the journal again, and secretly takes it, thinking Kate will be happy. On his way back, a man at a bar sees the book and warns Chris about a temple. Chris feels a little nervous but still asks the bartender about the temple's location and writes it down, not knowing this will lead to a scary adventure. The next day, Chris shows the journal to Kate. She is very happy. He also tells her he found where the temple from the drawings is. Kate, feeling excited and curious, says they should go see it. They ask a local woman for help, and she shows them a village in the mountains with a place to stay nearby. On the way, they meet an old man who warns them about the temple. Chris translates the story. A boy named Hitoshi once went there and came back crazy, holding his own eyes. But Chris doesn't tell the scary part to Kate or James, pretending it's not important. After some time, they arrive at an old woman's house where she lets them stay for the night. Inside, Chris notices a man with no eyes, probably Hitoshi, who seems to know Chris is looking at him. That night, Kate asks Chris what he thinks about the place. He says it feels calm, but he's actually feeling nervous inside. Later, while Chris is sitting alone, The old woman gives him a blanket and some sake to drink. They start talking about the temple, and she says that after what happened with Hitoshi, people stopped visiting it. She was only 17 years old when it happened. After she leaves, Chris walks around the lodge taking pictures. Suddenly, the same strange boy from the shop, Sata, shows up. Chris is shocked. Sata says he lives here and offers to take Chris to the temple. Chris agrees. Just then, the old woman comes in and tells Sata it's time for bed. The boy leaves. This weird moment makes Chris feel uneasy. Later, Chris talks to the blind man, Hitoshi, who tells him about the temple's past. Years ago, some children disappeared, and the police found out they had gone to the temple. They met a wandering monk there, but the villagers thought he was guilty and killed him. Since then, every year they light candles and pray for the missing children to come back. That night, someone quietly opens Chris's door to see if he's asleep. When Chris sits up, the person leaves without saying anything. Scared, he wakes up Kate and James, but they don't find anyone. James, irritated, says Chris is just imagining things. Chris says sorry, and they all go back to sleep, not knowing the horror waiting in the mountains. The next day, a strange boy named Sata takes Kate, James, and Chris on a forest path to the temple. As they go higher, the place becomes very quiet and full of tension. When they get close to the temple, Sata suddenly stops and hides behind a tree. When they ask why, he says his mother is waiting and he can't go further. Before leaving, he tells Chris to come back before it gets dark. The three move ahead. Kate clicks pictures of a statue nearby while Chris reads what's written on it. It's the trickster, a half-god who can change shape and control others. Kate is curious. At the same time, James discovers the entrance to an old cave, thinking it's a mine. He really wants to go inside, but Kate prefers to look at the temple first. To settle it, she ties her scarf to a tree near the cave, so they can find their way back later. When they reach the temple, Chris sees Sata still hiding behind the trees, staring at them. Chris goes to talk to him, but the boy quietly picks up a small bell, rings it twice, and walks away without saying a word. Chris feels nervous and goes back to the group. Inside the temple, Kate takes pictures of stone slabs, and Chris films statues of old gods. James gets impatient and says it's getting late. They should leave. Kate agrees. Something about the forest now feels strange and scary. Suddenly, Chris shouts. A hand comes out from under the temple floor and pulls him down into a tunnel. Kate and James run to help and find him lying unconscious below. James climbs down, helps him up, and brings him back, but Chris's leg is badly hurt. He can't walk anymore. Shaken, he tells them what happened. A huge, scary hand pulled him off the ground. They now understand that this temple is hiding something much more dangerous than old stories said. Kate says they should leave right away, but James thinks they should sleep there and look for help in the morning. Things get tense around the fire. Kate and Chris talk about their past and share a big secret. Kate is going to have a baby, and the father is Chris, not James. Chris tells her to tell James the truth once they get back, but James has already heard enough. Angry, he grabs his bag and walks off, saying he'll find help but won't spend another night there. As he walks through the forest, he strangely keeps ending up at the same statue of the trickster. He's stuck, walking in circles. At one point, mad and tired, he yells at the statue and walks off again, but ends up back at it. At the same time, Kate goes into the woods to collect firewood. Her flashlight stops working, and she starts crying, feeling scared and worn out. She didn't know that two ghost-like kids were standing quietly near her. She goes back to the temple and sleeps next to Chris. James, now completely lost, sees the statue again, but this time, it moves. A scary creature attacks him, and James runs through the forest, shouting in fear. Kate and Chris hear him. Kate grabs a torch and runs to help. Chris wants to go too but is too badly hurt. He sees something dark coming and hides inside the temple. Kate finds James's torch and follows the light into the cave. Inside, she sees something terrifying. James is almost dead, covered in blood, and his eyes are missing. She tries to get out, but the cave feels like a never-ending maze. She falls to the ground, crying in fear. Back at the temple, scary children come out of the ground and attack Chris. They surround him, and the screen goes dark. Now we are at the hospital. The real story is told. The hurt man is Chris. Professor Rio asks what happened to Kate. Chris says he doesn't know anything, but when he talks about Sata, the boy who showed them the way, the professor looks shocked. There's no record of any boy like that. Actually, no one except Chris ever saw him. Flashbacks show a scary truth. Sada was never real. He was an evil spirit controlling Chris the whole time. When the old woman said, "It's time to sleep," she was talking to her dog, not to the boy. Kate and James never spoke to Sada because he didn't exist. Every time Chris saw him, he was being tricked by the spirit. Even worse, it turns out that Chris was the one who killed James, not any demon. The temple had already started taking over his mind. In the hospital, Chris becomes fully controlled. His eyes turn black, and Sada shows up behind him. Chris kills Odoku, then disappears. In the final scene, the old mountain woman lights candles in front of pictures of missing children. One of them is Sada. The movie ends with a chilling feeling. The temple was never just empty and old. It was a cursed place that fed on people's guilt, dark secrets, and inner pain. And anyone who didn't listen to the warnings never came back the same, if they came back at all.